Hey you, what up? Today on the agenda is the new MAC Studio Fix Powder Plus Foundation. So this is the reformulated version of the original Studio Fix Powder Foundation from MAC that has been around for a very long time and has a massive cult following. I actually am not a part of that massive cult following. So to me, this is kind of a brand new product. I'm saying it this way because although I did try the original MAC Studio Fix Foundation, this was like 10 years ago. And at that time, we truly were not that into powder foundations. So I might have tried it a few times. I forgot all about it. And now I don't even know where my original one is. But anyway, it's been a long time. So today I'm going to be testing out this new product as if it's my first time testing it out. So I'm not going to be comparing it with the other one. There are plenty of videos on YouTube comparing the original formula to this one. Instead, I'm just going to focus on the new and talc-free one. All right. So that was a very long intro. So I'm just going to remind you to do what you got to do. Subscribe if you aren't already, notification bell, and let's get into it. MAC Studio Fix Powder Foundation, talc-free, the new reformulated version, review, wear test, and a verdict. Let's go. All right, so I've got this PR cylinder over here with 3 shades. We got shade NC30, NC37, and C4. And of course, I'm going to swatch all of them. We also have a MAC Fix Plus, the alcohol-free one. Very nice. So we'll put that to the test as well. And now let's go over all of the facts. Basically, this is a reformulated version of the OG MAC Studio Fix. Like I said before, this does come in 67 shades. I'm not sure if the original one came in 67 shades, but this one does. And it is a $39 product, which I believe is the same price. Supposed to be 24-hour oil control, blur matte finish. I'm not sure what exactly that means, but I guess a blurring type of matte finish. Suitable for oily, dry, or acne-prone skin, which works for me because right now I am breaking out. You probably can't tell because I have some concealer strategically spot placed on all the spots, but there's no foundation, there's no primer, there's nothing else on my skin. I should probably warn you if you are not familiar with MAC and you are looking for shades, remember that MAC classifies their cools as warm shades. Actually, it's totally backwards. MAC kind of looks at colors the way that artists look at colors. So to the MAC artist, a pink undertone is actually considered a warm undertone, whereas a golden undertone is actually considered a cool undertone because it is closer to olive, which is actually green. So technically they are right. And a few brands do it this way. MAC is not the only one. House Labs also does it this way. So in case you're wondering about shades and you're wondering why the cools look warm on you and why the warms look cool on you, it's because it's backwards. So anyway, so now I kind of just want to show you the shades that I have and I want to swatch them, of course. I also do want to show you the compact. This is what it looks like. It's got a little protective plastic screen here. And this flips up and there's also a little sponge in here. Of course, a mirror like always. This is essentially it. So a little bit more structured, flatter than the original, but a brand new design. I'm gonna go ahead and start swatching the 3 shades that I have, starting with shade C4. I'm gonna be using the same sponge for all of them, just in case I wanna give some away. I don't wanna mess up the other sponges. So C4 is a light, neutral golden with a slight peachy undertone. So this is what it looks like. C4, quite light on me. And I can definitely see the slight peachy undertone, especially I can see it on my neck. I would say the coverage does feel a little bit more than a powder, but it is very soft to the touch, so you're able to blend it out. Next, I'm going to swatch shade NC30, which is a light to medium golden undertone. So NC30 is probably the shade that I am, but it does look a little bit dark on my face. Let's see what it looks like on my neck. Actually, it's a little bit dark on my neck too. So probably I'm an NC25 in this, but I don't have an NC25. I have an NC37. So I'm going to go ahead and swatch that as well. For today, I should probably use the C4. The C4 seems to be the closest and it's not like that far off. All right, let's go with shade NC37. Okay, so this one is actually lighter than the NC30 and definitely a lot more yellow. So the NC30 is a medium beige with a neutral undertone. Medium beige with a neutral undertone. They both look a little bit too saturated for my liking. I still kind of like C4 on me the best. And that's probably going to be the one that I go for, but maybe I'll incorporate just a little bit of the NC30 or maybe 37. I don't know. I'm just like a little bit perplexed, but the C4 I feel like I could utilize. Even when my skin gets a little bit more tan in the summertime, I feel like C4 is something that I could use to brighten my face. It's close enough is what I'm saying. I'm gonna go with it. I'm just gonna use this kabuki brush from Bare Minerals to buff these swatches into each other. Is that ridiculous of me to do? I don't know. I just kind of wanted to see what would happen if you need to spread them out and if you need to like fix a mistake or whatnot. And I feel like with a dense kabuki brush like this, you can actually do that. So that's pretty good to know. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna reach for shade C4, which again is a cool, but the cool is actually a golden undertone. You follow? Yeah. So this is a neutral golden peachy. I'm gonna pick it up with a sponge and I'm just gonna start plastering that onto this side of the face. I'm really curious to see how it will take care of this spot right here. I feel like that was pretty promising. Not too bad. This is indeed offering really, really good coverage, which I do appreciate, but it does feel quite velvety and for the most part, lightweight. Obviously, because it's a powder, it doesn't feel sticky whatsoever. And what I like about it is that it is not clinging to any pores or any imperfections. This spot right here actually does have a texture, so I'm probably gonna need to spot treat it just to make sure that it's covered as much as possible, but here we go. Not too bad. And now let's see what happens when I get to the porous zones. This is the area that scares me the most because the porous and acne scarred areas don't tend to handle powders very well. In fact, I feel like sometimes powders tend to maximize the texture, making it look a little bit more pronounced than what it is. At least in my case, it does. So I'm always weary of placing powder there, but because I have just a little bit left on my sponge, I'm kind of just swiping whatever is remaining and just pushing it in. In fact, this looks very, very smooth. I'm quite pleased. This spot is, still a little bit too difficult to cover up with just powder. It probably would have served me better to add a little bit of concealer first and really cover it up, but that's fine. I really just wanted to show you what it looks like on bare skin so that you can imagine what it would look like over foundation or over concealer. So I would say shade C4 is pretty good for me, for my natural skin tone. And granted, my face is several shades lighter than my skin on my body. So I wouldn't necessarily use this without bronzing or without contouring, without helpers. But for the sake of today, this is the shade that I want to apply all over just to show you. So now that I've done that, let me show you the other side, just so you can compare the freckles, the texture, and just like the overall tone. All right, you ready? Here we go. This is the other side. You can clearly see all the shine. You could see the spots. You could see the freckles. And here's the side of the face. Here they are side by side. What do you guys think? I feel like the coverage is pretty good here outside of the spot, which we'll take care of. But honestly, at first impression, this looks and feels pretty damn flawless. As flawless as you can get from a powder foundation without it looking very detectable on the skin. I like it. At first impression, I really do like it. All right, so now I'm gonna apply a little bit on the rest of the nose. Whoa, that completely got rid of my nose freckles, which made my nose look so different. I never actually apply full coverage on my nose, but that just really brought it forward, didn't it? A little bit on the chin. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna apply the same shade C4 with a fluffy brush on the other side of the face, just to see if there's a difference. This is a Mario F2 brush. So now I'm applying it with a fluffy brush, which means that I'm not packing it on. I'm just kind of buffing it in. And here's the difference. This looks a lot sheer. You could still see my freckles. You could still see the spots. Whereas here, it just feels a little bit more even tone and also a little bit more even in texture. I definitely see what they mean by the blur matte finish. It has this blurring sort of effect to the texture, and I'm just checking myself out in my monitor because it's a little bit more true to life than what I'm seeing in the mirror in this lighting, and I have to say I'm not scared, and that's a good thing. All right, so then for the forehead, what I think I'm gonna do is go for shade NC30, which is the light medium golden undertone. And with a fluffy brush, I feel like NC30 is also a good match. I think if I were to apply this with a sponge and really concentrate the color on my skin, it would look a little bit more makeup-y. Also because the shade match wouldn't be exact, but let's try it. So this is NC30 applied with a sponge. I'm just gonna apply it to the center of my forehead so we can see if we like it or not. I do like the shape of the sponge because it's somewhat rounded, but it does have some flat sides, so you could easily go around flatter areas like your eyebrows and in between. So that's kind of nice. Oh no, I really actually do like it with a sponge, even on shade NC30, which I thought I was going to give away, but now I think I'm actually going to keep, because something about packing it on with a sponge really affects the texture. The texture isn't so much smoothed out and blurred out with a brush, but with a sponge, you could really see everything kind of flattening out on the skin surface. So I do appreciate that. Do you guys see what I'm talking about? Yes, there are some bumps, but they're slightly less visible and they're slightly less pronounced. I'm gonna go for shade NC37. So this one was the very saturated kind of yellow one right here. It's actually not that off. Again, with a brush, just gonna see if I can add a little bit of definition to the cheeks. I sometimes like contouring with powders rather than with bronzers or contour powders, just because it gives a lot more of a natural definition rather than a sculpted shadow-like or bronze-like type of vibe, you know? All right, that wasn't so bad. So I just took a little bit of the NC30 on my finger and I just dabbed it on that spot. I feel like that did it. That almost worked as a concealer. Huh. All right, let me show you guys a close-up. I feel like at this point, a close-up is really what we're interested in. So let's do it. So here's this side of the face. Shade C4 applied with a fluffy brush. You kind of still see my bumps, right? You can see my pores and texture. I'm very, very close to the phone. All right, and now let's look at this side of the face. So this was applied with a sponge, same shade, but you can just tell outside of the spot, you can tell that it almost looks like there's a filter on my skin, but there isn't. We don't use filters here. This is the skin. This is what it looks like. Very, very close to the phone. Up close, you can still see my freckles. And I don't mind that so much. I think that's just the iPhone doing that thing that it does. But take a look at the forehead. You can see some bumps. I have like a little bit of I guess, a breakout and irritation right here in this area. But the texture seems to be contained, you know? Like if I turn to the side, you can't even tell that there's texture there. Unless, of course, I'm facing the light and just inches away from the phone, like 3 inches away from the phone. That's the only way you can tell. 12, 14 inches. Not bad. I gotta say, this is a lot better than I was expecting, because I've been hearing a lot of people complain about this reformulation, and especially when brands take talc out of the powder or out of the powder foundation, there's always this big discrepancy with the product. It just doesn't act the same. It doesn't look the same, doesn't feel the same for certain. To me, having not been a fan of the original formula, this formula feels really, really nice to me. I don't quite remember or frankly can compare the two, because to me, this is just its own brand new standalone product. And I like the way that it looks. I like the way that it feels. It definitely doesn't feel heavy or cakey or the way that powder foundation used to feel 10 years ago. This feels very lightweight. It doesn't feel like I'm wearing a face full of makeup, but the coverage is definitely there. And the finish looks very, very natural. It looks like my real skin, but better, but perfected, just smoothed out, a little bit filtered, you know? Obviously, all of my imperfections are gone. It's able to cover everything without looking like a heavy mask, you know? So I'm here for it. Obviously, we need to see how this wears. The talc-free part is the part that is concerning me, considering the fact that I am very, very oily, and my skin becomes oily probably within 30 minutes to an hour after wearing a product. The only thing left for us to do is to see how it wears. So let's plug in that good old time warping music for that wear test, and let's hit it. Okay guys, I am back in the kitchen. It's been 2 hours and I'm under some very unflattering lighting, and this is what we are looking like. So if I turn kind of away from the light, my skin looks smooth. Ignore the spot. But the moment I turn towards it, you can kind of see all of my oil seeping through right underneath my under eye, which is where the oil glands actually start. And you can kind of see that the texture is magnified now, whereas before it was smoothed out. So 2 hours, and this is what the skin looks like. This is what the forehead looks like. You can definitely see all the bumps and all the skin imperfections that I have going on. I will say this side of the face looks just a little bit better, even though there are still some bumps. But given the fact that there's a lot less product on this side of the face, it looks a little bit more natural. Here, on the other hand, you can definitely see the makeup, you can definitely see the powder, and of course, you can see the oils coming through. So that to me is not ideal. However, I'm not saying that this is a deal breaker for me. I do want to see how this wears over foundation, over concealer, over blush, contour, cream products, everything that I typically put on my face, so that I can make a better judgment and a better call. But so far, the way that it's looking on my bare skin, specifically in the pore zones where I produce the most oil, is just not ideal. Here, it's looking still kind of smooth, but you know, I don't really get any oil seeping through here on the perimeter of my face. It's really the center of my face that's bothering me, like specifically the shiny zone in the center. All right, granted, the light isn't ideal, but I really wanted to show you this close up so you can really see what I see. All right, so with that, make your own judgment. Definitely let me know if you want me to do a follow-up video, perhaps in a Faves X Fails or in a testing new makeup video where I apply this over foundation. Let me know down below, and I will be happy to do that because I'm actually curious myself. So for now, I'm gonna leave you on that note. Peace out, I'm out. More videos over here. For now, let's just say this is not a powder foundation that I would wear on my bare skin, but I have a feeling that with a few helpers, foundation, it will wear a little bit better. But I'll definitely let you know. All right, peace out, I'm out, deuces.